Andrew Tate and Jack Hopkins just sparred. Let's review the footage to correct Jack's fighting style and ensure he wins his next fight, and also break down the tricks that Andrew Tate used to dominate this one sparring session. Now what you notice right off the bat is that Jack moves a lot, okay? He's slipping, he's rolling, but Andrew Tate on the other hand is standing there kinda like a tree, okay? So he's just standing there and not really moving a lot. He's standing, observing, standing. But when somebody tries to attack him, and that's what makes him successful with this style and why it works for him, most of the time Andrew Tate uses his footwork or his head movement again to just block shots. So when somebody tries to attack him, he's maybe even rolling with his Philly shell, or moving his head, or moving back with footwork. And that's why it works for Andrew Tate. So now throughout this sparring session, we see Andrew Tate drawing the jab out all of the time. Now one of the most important things in kickboxing, boxing and MMA is to make people think about something. And then you can utilize feints, or just simply attacks to create openings. And now we will see how Andrew Tate created an opening on Jack with this strategy. Now Andrew Tate blitzes forward with his jabs the whole round, okay? Makes him a bit seen with the splits as well. And Jack is parrying all of the time. Maybe slipping sometimes, but most of the time he's parrying. And now Andrew Tate, because he's a skilled kickboxer, sees that the response to his jab is most of the time a parry. Now with a parry, most of the time when you overextend, you are open on the side. You're open for a hook. Now Andrew Tate knows that, so he throws out the jab more, And now Jack Hopkins thinks about this jab. Jack Hopkins thinks about this jab, and one moment Jack thought Andrew is going to throw another jab out. But now Andrew blitzes forward and comes in with a hook. And you see Jack trying to parry because he thought again there is a jab coming. And Andrew Tate didn't really feint this, he's just drawing his hook out from the same side. But just because Andrew Tate drew out the jab all of the time, he made him think about this and then landed the shot eventually. Now here's also a nice small exchange with a lot of detail behind it. Now Andrew Tate draws out a jab and Jack slips the jab. Now again, Andrew Tate notices this, oh, he slipped. Now what can you use against people that slip a lot, okay? If you have problems with them, what can you use? By the way, in kickboxing you can also use leg kicks, knees and so on. Also nice attacks to use that. But you can use two things, and Andrew Tate is kind of combining them both together. And this is first of all feinting, and second of all attacking the body. And now what Andrew Tate does is he's not really feinting, but Jack thinks, again he's throwing the jab out because he just threw it earlier. But Andrew Tate now just attacks the body, okay? Simple. Jack slips, but the body's open, and Andrew Tate just attacks the body because Jack again thought there would come a jab to the head. It didn't, it came to the body, but it landed. And now what I noticed throughout the rounds, and this is something biomechanically related, and we're going to talk about this deeper in a second, and this is something as well that you can apply, some principles that I'm going to teach you. But what I saw Jack was doing is he's kind of drawing his jab from a slipped down position, okay? Whilst he's slipping down, or whilst his head is down, he's drawing the jab. Now this does not have a lot of power, first of all, but second of all, it is just useless to use that most of the time in that one scenario, okay? Because Andrew Tate just blocks, he has the Philly shell, he just protects his body. Now the jab to the body is a really effective technique to set up other shots, okay? In kickboxing again, really effective to set up high kicks, but in boxing as well, really effective to set up other shots like a hook and overhand, whatever. Really effective, but just using it with nothing, without even probing, with just wanting to hit something is really useless because again, there's no power behind it and it doesn't set something up. Now when you want to again use it over and over and let your opponent think that something is coming, then you can use it. But just drawing that purely without really big intent, without really wanting to probe and find openings is not going to work, okay? And also what I saw is a bit dangerous with this is, for example, when you slip, you need to come up, okay? And your opponent knows that. So when your opponent slips and is coming up, now there's a time where you can hit him, okay? Maybe they slip again, but most of the time you can hit them when they are coming up from the slip position. Now Jack is from that slip down position, from that position where his head is down, trying to jab, coming up, and Andrew Tate is hitting. You need to be a bit defensively as well. When you come up, maybe there's another shot coming when you come up, and also just maybe coming back, but not straight, maybe just coming back again a bit more defensively. So here Andrew Tate landed a few nice shots again. And why did they land? Now when we look at Jack Hopkins, sometimes when Andrew Tate is pressuring forward, maybe even feinting, he's putting his hands out, okay? He's putting his hands out. Now this is a normal reflex sometimes, but can just lead you to getting knocked out, okay? And we see that in some UFC fights, we see that in amateur fights, we see that in sparring a lot where people just put their hands out. And this can get you KO'd. Again, I think Israel Adesanya got KO'd with this. So when you are in sparring or when you fight, you need to be extra cautious that you do not put your hands out, okay? You can use a long guard, you can frame them, but be secure, okay? Don't put both hands out, be secure, put your elbows here, tuck them. That's the long guard, okay? But just doing that as a reflex is not going to work, okay? Long guard is really tight. The other hand is here. Your shoulder is here, protecting your head, and this hand is framing like this. When you're framing like this, your hand can slip off sometimes when you're sweaty. So just putting your hand like this, framing them is really effective, okay? Really effective defensive technique. But just as a reflex, putting your hands out just makes you exposed and will get you knocked out, okay? Now let's break down his pad work and see how he could get more power. And now all of the things that I'm going to teach you, you can apply yourself to maximize your power. Because you see in every powerful puncher, most of the time, it's not genetics, it's using those principles. It's using those biomechanical principles. All of them, Canelo, Pereira, all of them are using this, okay? So now let's look at this. Now one thing that you need to know is the stretch shortening cycle. Now you can explain the stretch shortening cycle really easy with a jump. Now, you normally don't jump without a dip down, don't you? Because you then do not have power. You can now stand up, try jumping without a dip down, without dipping down, and you can also try jumping with dipping down. And now why do you have more power when you dip down? Okay, why do you have more power? Because when you dip down, it's called the stretch shortening cycle. So that phase is the stretch. It's not like a stretch where you stretch like this or where you stretch your arms. It's not that. It's just called stretch because the muscle elongates. But when you dip down, okay, your muscle stretches, it stores elastic energy. And now the elastic energy is good for the contraction, okay? The shortening. So now when you go up, the shortening is where you maybe punch. You let the punch out. And when you dip down, elastic energy stores, so the stretch. And then you come up and you contract, your muscles shorten, you contract and you let that elastic energy out. The same again with the jump. You dip down, you store elastic energy, you jump up, you contract that stored elastic energy. But when you do not dip down, you do not have that elastic energy. So that's really important. Another example would, for example, be a golfer that is swinging a golf bat. He's not swinging it from here, he's winding up and then swinging, okay? So that's why the stretch shortening cycle is so important for boxing. So it just stores elastic energy, and then we can contract more power, we have more power, and this will lead you to getting KO power. Now, how can you get this power and what could Jack do? So the first thing is hips move first, arm comes second, okay? So when you look, for example, at Canelo or any other good boxer, you see them throwing, but the hips move first and their arm legs a bit behind, okay? And then they are winding up and then they are landing, okay? So the hips move first and then the arm comes second. Now, why does this get us more power? We're just creating stretch in our kinetic chains, for example, the arm lines and so on. We're just creating a stretch shortening cycle in those kinetic chains. And so that means we store more elastic energy in them, and so we can contract more of them with our punch, okay? So moving your hips first and then your arm is what all of the pro boxers use. You see Pereira, you see Canelo, you see all of them doing this, and this will lead you to getting more power. And now also you can profit from rolling and slipping, okay? Jack is using this a lot, but he could use it a bit better. He could use it to get more power. Now I said, when you dip down, you store elastic energy, the stretch is happening. You can also use it with your punches. When you slip, you dip down, okay? You stretch, and then after, like directly when you slip, you can come up, okay? And punch whilst you're coming up, not come up and then punch, because then the elastic energy is not that strong, because then the elastic energy is just away again, because then you do not have the same power as when you slip, and then whilst you're coming up, you're punching instead of slip, come up and then punch, okay? So slipping or rolling and then coming up with this elastic energy stored is really important. And just using a simple dip down as well, it doesn't need to be slipping when you're defensive. It could also just be dip down and then explode up, okay? It could also just be dip down and then explode up with your offense attacks to, again, get more power with your shots. And also another defensive technique that Jack Hopkins using where he could get a bit more power is blocking a hook, for example, okay? So we see him blocking the hook, but he could rotate a bit in to stretch, to load up, and then fire out the hook, okay? So when you do that, you're loading up. That's it. For example, when you punch as well, you load up, you cross now, okay? So your cross is now loaded up. Now your hook, when you rotate really into it, your hook is loaded up again. So you create those stretch shortening cycles again. Jack, I wish you luck with your next fight that is maybe coming up, and I hope that you fix those mistakes, bro. See you back soon. And also I have a song for you, bro.
perché trap shout che la gela tu la facciata c'ho un beta show bomb di bomb e